But I do really appreciate y'all coming out here tonight to be part of this conversation. It is really important and it's fun even, I think, and it's just more than we can ever do on a Sunday morning. And so I know everybody is crazy busy, and so it means a lot to me that y'all are here and that we get to have this conversation. So, for many of you, you've been around for quite a while. In fact, some of you have sat in this room for very similar meetings in different iterations of this project. Some of you are newer to this conversation, but what I can tell everyone is that this has been a project that really predates our church. Back in 2009, I was attending town hall meetings that, come on in, y'all. I was attending town hall meetings that Mead West Vaco was holding because they had purchased the 80,000 acres that they were calling East Edisto, and they were trying to build out a 50-year plan for East Edisto. And so I was going to those town hall meetings. A lot of them were in Summerville High School. It was my first time in the building. Now I've got a kid in the building. It all seemed really far away then because at the time, actually this was 2008, I was pregnant with Jacob and going to Summerville High School to talk about the future of our community, and now I have a child attending Summerville High School. So that gives you just the snapshot of the duration of some of this project. But we've seen lots of iterations, but we're at a point where we are very ready to start and get this project underway. And the good news that you're going to hear me talk about tonight is that that is about to happen. So we're talking some really tangible kinds of things with all of this tonight. So to back up a little closer, recent history, last fall we kicked off a 2-year Now Here campaign to get this building built. And so we are sitting, and when I sent out letters a couple weeks ago and some emails, it was all geared toward where were we a year into that campaign of getting underway. And while site work and building hasn't started, the good news is we've actually made a ton of progress in the last year. And a lot of it has been around the finances, but also a lot of things happening in the background. And so just to reiterate some things y'all have heard me say quickly on Sunday mornings, because of the kickoff of that campaign and people stretching and just increasing our margin in general, we have already met our budget for 2023. We have completely met and surpassed our operating budget. And we've gotten building gifts over and above that. So we are actually way beyond our operating budget for the year. And even better news for Garrett and the other people that are part of our finance team, we're not even going to spend all of our operating budget this year. So that's additional margin. So that's really great news, because one of the things you're going to hear me say a little bit later is that we have over $500,000 in reserve funds right now, which is exceptional and a good place to be in, because it means we're a few steps ahead financially of the project, and that's where we want to stay. So it's always good to walk in on the front end financially of a project. So we have met our budget for the year. So the other thing that means is that everything our church gives the rest of this year is going to go directly into this building project. That's extra good news because, like almost every church and nonprofit on the planet, December is our biggest month every year. And so our biggest month is still ahead, and all of that is going to be money that we get to put into this project. So my hope and expectation is that by the end of the year, our margin's going to look, our reserve fund's going to look closer to about $650,000. And the reason I see it going to that is because this is also going to be the first year in the history of Ashley Ridge Church that we give over $1 million collectively, which feels really fun. I've never seen $1 million in the same place, but I got to tell you, it's really fun to get balance sheets from our bookkeeper at the end of every month that between our land and our assets and everything else, there's extra commas. And it's really fun to see those numbers and to go, God has been really, really good in this process. The other piece of celebration at this point is the fact that we've secured a bank loan. I'm going to talk more about that later, but if you've been around our church, and everyone in this room has been since May, you know that we had almost our bank loan, and then we lost our bank loan. And so to be standing here a few months later and say we have a bank loan feels really good. And again, the history on that was we had put together all the things, we had the commitment from the bank, and then we just hit that perfect moment where the reserve kept raising interest rates and the bank pulled away. In the moment, it felt devastating. Garrett and I cried tears into our pillows for a couple weeks and took turns being on the upswing, sending each other the text that said, get off the mats, we're gonna do, God's gonna do something here. But it really only took about a week or two to realize that God had our backs in that one. As rates continued to go up, we knew we would have been very quickly with an adjustable rate over 9% and then potentially even higher in an interest rate, and that would have killed us. And so as devastating as it felt in the moment, there was just yet another chapter in the book of where God's writing a different story with this and had our backs in that process. And so the good news is we have a signed commitment on a bank loan. We are scurrying to do all the closing stuff. And by scurrying, I mean the bank, because we already did our part. But you all have closed on houses, and you know how it is. You get down to the last couple weeks, and it's just passing papers back and forth. That's where we are with the loan. So that's going to get closed here in the next week or two. So that's really great news. And then the other great news, come on in, Sandy. The other really great news is that in the midst of all of that, we've been able to put together what I've been calling a highly doable project, right? And we always talk in church circles about the fact that we want to stretch and we want to do things that are bigger than us. And we do, and we are as a church. But in the midst of understanding the climate we're in and going through so many revisions, we're at the point where we have put together, again, what I'm calling a highly doable project. This one we've got firmly in hand. And so I'm going to show you that in just a minute. I'm going to show you those pictures and by the numbers how doable this is and what this is going to look like for us to get this underway. So in terms of what is next, the site work revisions have all been submitted for permits. And when I say revisions, when we shifted away from the loan we had in the spring to the loan we had now, we shifted to a smaller version, a phase 1A of our building, which means that we're gonna be developing 5 of our 12 acres in this first phase. All right, so all of those things have been submitted to the county, including all the revisions. We've got approval on some of our permits. We can look at a really cool dashboard. It's multicolored. Green means go and approved. Blue means pending, pending, pending. And orange means we're the government and we're still figuring out this form. So at least that's how I'm decoding it. And William, you work for the government. Tell me I'm wrong. Okay, thank you. Devaney, you work for the guy. Never mind, y'all are on YouTube. Don't say it out loud. Don't say it out loud. So that's in process. Like I said, the loan is going to get signed here in the next week or two. The other thing that's happening is we have finished all the revised design documents from our architects, which means that we are now, all the engineers have written new narratives. That means more to some of you than others in this room, but all the different mechanical and electrical and all the different engineers write narratives that go alongside the design documents that go to our builders, and then they come back to us with another round of pricing. We're getting to that guaranteed, what's called the guaranteed maximum price with the builder. And so with that new pricing that we're supposed to have by November 10th, we will go through our very last round of value engineering in November. And what happens in value engineering is the architects get together with the engineers who get together with the builder, and they do one more round of, if you use this material instead of this material, how many dollars can we save? And if we do it this way instead of this way, can we save any more money? And then Lennar weighs in on the design review board side of that and goes, that's cute, that would save you money, but we classy, so you have to use this piece. And then we get to the final of what that looks like. So that's the value engineering process. That's going to happen in November, and then our architects are feeling highly confident and promise me that we will have construction documents by Christmas. So that's really exciting. For those of you who've been around this journey for a while, we have never had construction documents before. We've had schematic documents, we've had conceptual documents, we have never had construction documents ready to go to the field. And so I've been telling everybody in these last couple of meetings that I might even have to print a copy and put them in a package and put a bow on them under my Christmas tree, just to open them up and be like, woo, I got construction documents. So those are going to be done before Christmas, which means, God willing, and the sun keeps shining, literally, we will break ground in January. So It's a nice start of the year kind of bonus, and it's really right around the corner. So things are kind of happening fast and furious. In fact, Garrett and I have seen each other every day this week so far doing these meetings, and yet he walked in tonight and we were catching up on the latest invoices and things from today and going, what about this? Because there's just a lot of I's being dotted and T's being crossed in that process. So that's what's happening right now. But to the fun part, y'all want to look at pictures because that's the fun part. This is the outside of our building. And if you remember the pictures from back at the beginning of this year in the spring, it looked a lot like this. That ought to look really familiar. The difference is this is smaller, okay? So very same concept. We're going to continue to build on this concept, but where we were at about 23,000 square feet heading into this in the spring, this is 13,170 square feet, okay? So when I said this is phase 1A, all right, I want to be real clear that this gets us on the land. This gets our project in motion, and it is very likely that this is going to be a continuous process right into phase 1B. So this is an ongoing piece, but this is 1A. This is everything that's going to happen in that initial piece. And so I think the next picture, so they're up here. You also have ones that you can take with you. So if you like looking closer or farther, wherever you want to look. But this is the site plan. And so if you, as you're looking at this, this is the Fox Ridge Farm right here. So Ashley Ridge High School sits right here. Delamar Highway runs like this, all right? And then Lennar still owns these front parcels, and we have a permanent easement on that road that's all part of things we've already built with our civil engineers that's going to go back into our land. You'll notice that the retention pond is bigger than the building, and that's a good thing because that retention pond is sized for our master plan. And the reason you do it up front is because A, you bring in all the heavy equipment to do that up front. That's going to be the first thing we see start to happen in January. As soon as we break ground, you're going to see heavy equipment coming in to dig a really big swimming pool for alligators in the back of our pond. But the good news is we're going to pull a lot of usable dirt out of that pond that will be the building pad. So for those of you, again, that have been around this journey for a while, our last piece of land, when wetlands and things got revised, we were way too low. We were going to spend over $1 million in dirt just to get up to a building pad because dirt is, in fact, not cheap. And so with this land, this spot up here, and really this whole front section where the master plan will build out is about 20 feet. For those of you that means something to our old land, we were like the highest thing we had was 16 feet. And so when you're talking about dirt to get up to that, that's the highest point of the land. It slopes to the back, hence the reason that the pond is there. So that's what the big picture looks like. And then when, look at that next one, you get all the different sides of the building. Okay, so this is just from every angle what the building looks like, so head on. And then this is the back side with the playground next to it. This is the very back. That nobody but the cows will see, so that's why there's no decals on the back. We're not entertaining the cows at the farm. And then this is what you'll see coming in from Delamar Highway, is that big AR. One of the things you'll notice is that it's a lot of concrete because it is a tilt wall construction. Again, economical for what we're doing. Prices of steel, everything else, this is the most economical route for us to go and to add on to with our building structure. And so the architects have done a nice job just doing some different texturing and some of the different colors to break it up a little bit. We love the awning part that goes out over that front that also leads out to, when you look at the site plan, there's all that open green space in front of the entrance. That's actually our largest gathering space. We're running power and all kinds of things out to there so that we can do outdoor gatherings right out in that green space out front. And so that's what that looks like, and that's what it looks like from the sides and all of the different angles. And then if we flip over to the floor plan, here is the floor plan, all right? It's fairly simple, but it's got all the pieces. Here's the worship space coming in directly from the lobby and the welcome area. This worship space, depending on the configuration of the chairs, all the chairs will be movable, so we can do 2 aisles or 1 aisle or however we want to set up. But depending how you set it up, this worship space will seat 250 to 300 people at max capacity, okay? To put that in perspective for you, the auditorium we currently worship in seats 650, okay? So that's less, all right? That's less. And if you're doing the math, then what that should tell you is when we move into this building, we will most likely be in 2 services and even more likely 3 services on a Sunday morning. Yeah.
Where do we wheel the carts into?
Right? Where do we even wheel them in? I know. Jim, we're going to set up the extra space over here. Right, Jim is just like, how soon can I retire from setup team? Every Sunday, y'all, Jim is knocking it out of the park. But we're going to retire. And then you're going to sit on the bench reading all morning and not know what to do. But that's true. There might still be breakfast. We'll still get you breakfast. There's going to have to be breakfast because some of us are going to be there a long time because there's going to be a lot of services. And so there's some push and pull with that. One of the things I love about our church 14 years in is because the high school is where we've been, while none of the spaces are ideal and we put a lot of square pegs and round holes to make environments work. A lot of you volunteer in kids spaces. You see that. Jay is OG setup team, y'all. He led the setup team we started, and we're figuring out how it works. We put a lot of square pegs and round holes. However, we've had a lot of space to spread out. But it was also space that wasn't built for what we do. This is built for what we do and how we function. But one of the things I've loved about the high school is we've been able to stay in that one service configuration where we're all there at the same time. And there's a lot of energy and fun to that. So that's going to be a shift that we're going to make gradually as a church over the next year and a half as this building process takes place to be a church that meets at multiple times. However, there's advantages. Some of you have been waiting forever for an early service, Tina Tripp. Some of you are like waiting around till 10 o'clock is like I've had 3 breakfasts and read the whole newspaper and my kids are already fighting and we could have been at church already. So for those of you that have just been dying for an earlier service, we're going to have that for you. And then for those of you that are like, I'd really like to have a morning to drink my coffee and walk my dog and hang out a little bit, there's going to be a service time that is for you. I don't know what they are yet, but there's going to be a service time that is for you. You can
always do Saturday night.
Yes, or how do you feel about Thursday night?
No.
Okay. Kathy's coming Sunday morning, y'all. Kathy will be there, at the middle service on Sunday morning. That's my call. That's my call for Kathy, okay? So that's what's in the worship space. And then this kids space is sized proportionally to the worship space in terms of the percentage of kids in different ages that we have to our adult population. Because obviously that shifts a little bit with time, but we have enough data that we know proportionally as a church. When you compare us to other churches, we have proportionally, this is going to shock no one in this room, we have proportionally more kids than most churches. This is sized to that in terms of the kids space we need to match the student space. And then the other thing that you'll see if you shift up, as James shifts up there, there's a green room back here that will double as conference room, meeting room, any kind of other room is what will happen in that space. So this is being built very intentionally to grow quickly. One of the things that you can see on this is that this toddler room and the workroom look skinnier than these other rooms. It's because in the very next iteration, phase 1B, those are going to get blown out into hallways that will go into the family space that gets built right beside it over here. And so those are just sized and being built with that in mind. What you don't see on here is student space. And it is not because we don't like students. In fact, students are our very favorite, especially Sandy and I, because we live with them. A lot of us live with them. We love students. We just don't have room in this first phase. What you're looking at, though, is what we're actually building first is our student center. This will be all students when we get to the master plan. With the master plan, we will build more family space there and then a new worship center that will be between 500 and 750 seats up there. And then all of this will become student space. So that means things like the rebar is being intentionally placed in these rooms so that we're going to be really easily able to cut doors onto that size. So when this is student large group space, it'll feed right into small group space. In the meantime, what that means is that our student ministry is going to shift away from Sunday morning. So students will be meeting more like Sunday afternoon and other times during the week. The good news with that is they'll have the run of the building when they are in there, with the exception of the nursery and the toddler space, which are just being built for littles. So won't be able to use that. So that's going to be a shift in our programming and our dynamic. We're having lots of great staff conversations around that. Again, ideally, when we get down the road, we love middle school on Sunday morning. We think it's really ideal, especially with middle school, to have it on Sunday morning. So we will get back to that. But in the meantime, there's also some great opportunities for our students to be connected in worship, volunteering in lots of different areas, and then come back and have that space on Sunday afternoons. So that's what the floor plan looks like. So really quickly, and then I'm going to move on to the money part. And some of you were like, yes, get to that part. My husband, when I ran through this with him, all the building stuff, he's like, blah, 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 site work, retention ponds, blah, blah, blah. He's a finance guy. So he's just show me the money, tell me about the money. Some of the rest of you are like, I just came for the pictures. So a little something for everyone. But really quickly, as a recap of the timeline, what this looks like is we will be doing site work Q1 of 2024, because once we break ground, site work's going to take 60 to 90 days, and so we just got to pray for a warm, dry winter. Things don't dry as fast after rain when it's cold, so we need warm and dry in January and February to get through the site work. And that's for the people who really like detailed things, so you can see the water lines and some of those kinds of things. And then vertical construction will be quarters 2, 3, and 4 of 2024, and then hopefully by the time we're turning the calendar into 2025, we'll be moving quickly into post-construction. That's when you start getting all the AVL and furnishings and landscaping and all of those things in, with a hopeful move-in date of spring 2025. It's hopeful that Easter in 2025 is so late. It's April 20th. For anyone who watched the board meeting last night and has studied the new DD2 calendar, lots of mixed feelings on it. One of the things I love is spring break isn't even close to Easter. It means everyone can stay in town for Easter. Isn't this good news? This is great news, okay? But Easter is really, really late, and so I feel really good about our chances of getting into the building for our 18 services on Easter Sunday. It's going to be great. Everyone's going to get the time they want on, all the days of the week. It's going to be great. Anyway, so that's kind of how the timeline lays out. Okay, from a financial standpoint, yeah.
So with the smaller building, what's the timeline then potentially keeping the church office because of all of your offices?
Correct. And so I love that someone's thought about that in every meeting, and I just want to say that we feel seen. Thank you. So our goal is,
Just thinking of rent and
I know. So our goal is to still get rid of the office because we don't want to keep paying rent on the office. However, there are no offices in this space, and so I have been teasing the staff about the really cool roller desks that I'm going to buy, for all of us, so that we can just wheel ourselves to any seat we'd like in the auditorium or the workspace. There's going to be a little push and pull. For the family ministry team and for James, there's no reason to have an office somewhere else because everything they're working on is here. James will be back there in the AVL booth and around different places doing things. Shara and Charlie and Reagan and Nancy are going to duke it out for space in the workroom. That could be worth the price of admission, y'all, to see them. No, it is not a closet. This is a workroom, Jim. There's shelves. That's the copy machine. Look, the copy machine is drawn on there. That is cool. That is cool.
Is your intention to make the school?
So one of the things we've spent a good deal of time on is eventually having enough family ministry space that we could potentially do a daycare and or a preschool. In part because we want this building to be used 7 days a week, and one of the highest needs in Dorchester County is quality childcare. And so we really see that happening. In phase 1A, it's not enough space to fit DHEC requirements for a child care center. Yeah, so we'll be able to do non-DHEC related things. I think what we've discovered is you can do 4 hours or less and it doesn't fall under DHEC. So like if you were gonna do Mother's Morning Out or even just a half day kind of situation, if it's under 4 hours, Allison's nodding her head, that's good because she works for a preschool, then it doesn't have to fit that. So there are some options there. But yes, we very much like the idea with the amount of family ministry space we'll build that it could be used for a school in some capacity during the week. But our hope is that it can be used for lots of things, especially when we do the full build out. Meetings, community gatherings, all that kind of stuff. We've already had conversations with the school about things they'd like to partner with the space on, which will be great long term to continue to partner with Ashley Ridge. So really good questions. Okay, cost. Let's look at our fun pie charts that Alan Terry created with all of Garrett's suggestions. And Derek's been making spreadsheets for years, and so putting them into pictures that make sense for the likes of me and hopefully for y'all to get a picture of what this looks like. So this first one just shows this big picture of what we are looking at with these 5 acres and the 13,170 square feet in phase 1A. We're looking at a $7.5 million project, approximately. All right, it blows your mind, right, Michael? Like it just blows your mind. Oh, that one's not up there. So, but you've got this sheet. So it's a $7.5 million project, and again, that's approximate because we are still doing that final round of pricing and putting those pieces in. But that's what it looks like. So $1 million of that is land and pre-construction. Here's the good news: paid and done. We're in zero debt. So this $7.5 million project is already $6.5 million. Okay, so it's already smaller than that. And then 1.6 million of that is going to be site work on that initial 5 acres. All right, the numbers we're getting for that are around 300,000 an acre for the site work. Again, it takes your breath away what things cost at this point and where these numbers are. But for 5 acres, that's why that's 1.6 million. And then this 4.9 million for the building is 13,170 square feet times $370 a square foot, which was our last round of pricing with Trident, which again is high, and it's just what it costs. And frankly, it was a little lower in the last iteration when we were at 23,000 square feet, but when you get smaller, the price per square foot goes up a little bit because you're still putting the guts in, and it's that. So that's why that feels like that got even more. But again, in that last round, we've been working with Trident for years. The GC and the architect have stuck with this project and been great partners for us for years as we've gone through multiple iterations. And even still, we felt like in this climate, we had to be really good stewards of what everybody was giving. And so we did bid out this project again just to see what a couple other architects would come in at. Trident was still our best number. And our best partner. So that just made us feel like we had done the work, but we were really glad to be able to stay with Trident because they've been really great partners. So that's what that looks like. So that's how, when we're saying $7.5 million, those are the components that make up the project. Now, the funding strategy to get to that $7.5 million, again, the good news, we already paid $1 million. We did all of that out of margin of what we were giving above and beyond our operating budget and what we weren't spending in our operating budget between 2020 and now. All right, that's been a really good thing for us. Back in 2020, when we were getting ready to start this project right before the pandemic, y'all remember fasting? So we did that, and we were getting ready to start. Aaron, you remember, right? Fasting and running, it was great. Dark memory, okay.
Then you couldn't find me.
I know, it was really great. But we walked into this at a point where we really had very little margin, and then the project went on hold during a pandemic, and throughout the pandemic, and I don't ever want to make it sound like we were glad for the pandemic. Nobody was glad for the pandemic, and it was painful in all of the ways. But because we weren't in the building, we weren't spending money. Because our programming looked different, there's money we weren't spending. And in the midst of that, our church continued to give. which was phenomenal. And we didn't put it to waste. We kept putting it and feeding all the margin into the project and into the building fund, which is how we paid $1 million. We closed on land and burned the note outside worshiping during the pandemic. It was a really big deal. And then we continued to do that. So not only did we hit that first $1 million, but that's how we also have over $500,000 in our reserve fund. So $1.5 million accounted for. So now we're down to 6, right? And then we got a $4 million loan from First Citizens Bank. And so the way that our loan works is it's a 75-25. Now I'm just going to talk to Sandy. She's a banker. This is the banker corner. So I'm just going to talk to them. Y'all listen in. It's a 75-25 loan. She understands this. I learn all of these things. So what that means is when we close on that loan, we don't pay anything on it until we start drawing on it for 18 months. And so for the first 18 months after we close on that loan, whatever we draw, we will pay interest only. On that loan. When we do start to draw from the loan to do the site work and the construction, at the end of every month, when they send us a bill, the bank will pay 75% of the bill, we will pay 25% of the bill, and we'll keep doing that until the bank reaches $4 million. And then we're on our own. So what that does is, again, it allows us to continue to give and get ahead and stay ahead on our end of this project. All right, that bank loan is a 5.6% interest rate, which is pretty darn good in current client, right, banker corner? That's pretty okay, good. Nods over here from the bankers. 5.6%, and so we'll be paying that interest along and along only off of what we pool when we pool it. All right, so that's how that's structured. And then when you do the math on that, that leaves us with $2 million that we need to bridge to finish this project over the next 18 months. But wait, there's more. It's like we've been doing this for a few days. We're getting really good at this, y'all. There's more good news because a year ago we did commitments and we started to do pledges and people started to give, and another $800,000 of that is already accounted for by existing commitments. So we have $1.2 million to get to the 7.5. So 7.5 feels big. That's not our number. Our number is 1.2, which is 16%. All right, I know we all need numbers we can get our heads around. We need 16% of this project cost to account for. We can do that. Remember at the beginning when I said this is a doable project and we're gonna actually build this? That's why. This is something that we've got in hand. So that's how that's gonna play out financially. And so for all of us as a church, what that looks like is, again, a year ago when we started this, these look real familiar. We did these commitments and they were 2-year commitments. But as a One Fund church, we were essentially asking everyone to think through over the course of the next 2 years, what can you give monthly, and then is there anything additionally that you can give to this project? And so with those that made commitments last fall, we had 100 commitments. Again, we weren't in process yet. These were the first 100 people that have been around, and we're able to jump in and start moving this thing forward, and it's been a big deal. Our goal over the next 18 months is to get at least 100 to 150 more commitments that are part of this project. The reason that's incredibly doable is that we currently have over 220 families that give to our church. So saying that we need a total of 250 commitments is not that big of a stretch, but it gets us more than there. When 100 commitments and the families that are currently giving are getting to us to $1 million this year, you can see how easy and how quickly we can pull on the rope and everybody gets involved and we get there with this project. And so here's the deal with these. We created these in a way that they could be used and people could on-ramp at any point. However, as we enter year 2 and as we get ready to break ground, we are making another big push for these commitments because it helps us with our planning. It helps us know how far ahead we can be financially with the project, especially as the project starts and gets firmly on a timeline. I want to see the number ahead of the dirt, right? That's going to help all of us sleep better at night, like just to keep seeing that out ahead of us. And so If you already filled out one of these cards, you do not need to fill out another one of these cards, all right? That we still have your card. It's in the system. It's accounted for. That being said, a lot of people, when we filled these out a year ago, were in a place where they were going, we're coming out of a pandemic. I don't know what I can commit. I don't know what this is going to look like in a year. And so for a lot of people, we erred on the conservative side, and we gave everyone freedom to do that and said, you can revise this at any point. And so if you filled one out a year ago, but you're going, I don't even remember what the number is, I can tell you. Just send me an email, and I'll let you know. I did send those statements out a while ago so everybody could kind of see. But we can let you know that. But if you don't even remember, you don't know, or if that number is no longer the right number, then fill out a new one of these, and I promise I won't just add it to the last one, okay? I promise. They made me promise. I won't add it to the last one. I will replace the last one with what you have on this one. So again, it's us asking you, help us plan, help us know where you are. And then if you didn't fill one of these out a year ago because you weren't here, you didn't know, you weren't around for this part of the project, then our hope is that you can jump in with us and be part of this project and fill one of these out. So we're calling November 12th our Commitment Sunday, but you can turn these in before then. And even after that, one of the things we know that over the course of the next 18 months, people keep coming to our church. It's this really cool thing where people keep coming to our church. And that's going to be part of how we get here as well, with new people that are coming on board. But we're making a really big push in the next couple weeks to go, this project's getting started, and we want to just have the best gauge possible to be the best stewards possible of this. And so in November, we're going to be talking about these commitments, and November's like tomorrow. So we're talking about these commitments right now, and then in December, we'll do our Christmas offering. Again, it's really fun because it all goes to the building because we've covered everything else. And then I think we can get this gap of 16% covered. And if I'm putting all my cards on the table, y'all, I think this is so doable that we're going to crush it. And I think we're going to get ahead. And I think this first loan is going to transition directly into the second loan. We've already talked with the bank about this because they see it too in the growth potential and in the history of our church. And so this is far more a scenario where they're not going, well, only when you pay off all of the loan will we start the next loan. They're on the page of, we see you making progress and showing us this and having this investment, and this current loan then morphs into the next loan to keep building. That's my hope. I'm telling you that because this is what I know we can do, but I believe we can do a lot more, and I believe our community is waiting for us to do a lot more and create that space.